What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Links and Locks Best Bets podcast. I'm Jason Sobel. He is Ben Everill. And in just a few minutes, we will be breaking down this week's Honda Classic, maybe a little review of the Genesis Invitational first. As a reminder, the Links and Locks podcast is proudly presented by Bet365, the world's favorite sportsbook brand. Sign up with promo code ACTION, ACTION, to get Bet365's exclusive sign-up offer in New Jersey and Colorado. Bet $1 on any game, get $200 for free. Benny, what's going on? How are you doing?
Doing good, mate. Obviously a big week here in LA with the Genesis Invitational. We had Tiger for 4 days, which, we weren't certain that would happen, but it was pretty awesome that it did. He did try to fade. He came home strong late in round one and faded in round two, but got there in the end. And it helped sell thousands of tickets last minute for the weekend, by the way. Creating an awesome atmosphere.
Real quick, I want to ask you about Rahm. I want to ask you about Tiger. Which one do you want to take on first?
Oh, let's stick with Tiger since we've started with him. We'll get to Rambo after that.
Just kind of thoughts on him moving forward. I've got some thoughts as well, but this was a nice first step in the right direction, wasn't it?
Yeah, look, so here's the thing with Tiger, I think he's shown enough for us to have that anticipation or the dream that he could potentially do something for 4 days, 1 week a year at some point in the next few years. It would need to be a miracle, but we've seen those before. We've actually seen it with him at the Masters in 2019, right? So I think we saw enough to suggest that he could, if everything fell into place for him, if everything was perfect, could thrill us a little. Is he going to do it regularly? No, never again. It's not going to be a regular thing. Can he do it when he has these big breaks between events? Sure, I think he can. He's got it in him. I mean, the talent is there, and honestly, it was pretty impressive to see him. And he called it steer it around. He's that good that he can just dial it up and back when he needed to. When he wanted to outdrive JT and Rory, he did. When he wanted to just feather it around, he did. And he can still putt on certain days. So there's enough for us to be excited that he could be that guy that wins as an old man.
So last week, I called this essentially a spring training start, a preseason game, just get some reps in before major championship season. I would now say, Ben, that, look, I have no idea how Tiger felt waking up Monday morning after playing 4 competitive rounds in a Pro-Am, and I know how much work he's putting in just to get all the treatment and get himself prepared to go play every single day. But presuming he feels okay and the swing looked good, I'm at the point where I'd be more surprised if we didn't see him at the Players' Championship in a few weeks than if we did see him. The rationale here is twofold. First of all, it's all systems go. I mean, no, I don't expect him to play 15 times in a year. He's told us that many, many times. But if he's going to play the events that mean the most, it would make sense for him to go out and play the Players. If nothing else, get a little more action, competitive action, going into the first major of the year at Augusta. And secondly, Tiger's been such a vocal leader and supporter of the PGA Tour over the last year in such tumultuous times in professional golf that I truly believe he wants to show his support visibly for the tour and not just audibly. And so I think that he knows if he shows up for the Players' Championship, that's a little feather in the cap for Jay Monahan and everybody else in Ponte Vedra Beach. And I think it would be a pretty nice thing for him to be able to go and show up. Again, he's not going to do it if he's not healthy enough, but as long as he's feeling okay, the swing feels okay, I do think that we'll see him at the Players in a few weeks. Getting to Jon Rahm real quick. Wins for the 3rd time this year at the Genesis Invitational. He's now won 3 times, by the way, from the pre-tournament favorite position. And I'm not sure we're going to see an event, at least for a while, where Jon Rahm isn't the favorite going in. He's just that good. Gains his right position at number 1 in the official world golf ranking once again, which Rory McIlroy, Scotty Scheffler might take it back from him at some point, but boy, is Jon Rahm playing some great golf right now.
Yeah, look, and I'm testing my own memory even just back a week, but I know that you and I both, we might not have had him on our board, but we said that's only because he's starting as favorite and he could easily go on and win as favorite as he's shown he can. And that's what he did. And, it was impressive. I tell you where I found it impressive. Max Homa put up a real good fight to him. And he wasn't going away. And on Sunday, they both hit a little mini stumble on that 12, 13, etc. area, and it could have gone either way. And prior to that, there were a few, let's say, choice words coming from Rahm, and he looked a little heated, and he looked a little like, oh, this could be that old Rahm ready to implode. And quite frankly, we saw the week before in Phoenix, when it wasn't quite going his way, he sort of fell back.
Right.
And I thought, whoa, hang on a minute. But instead, he did what Tiger used to do. When the moment came, he stepped up. He went to the next, he shook off the bad hole, went to the par 3, 14th, and made a bomb right when it made it. Smashed one in. Then 2 holes later, hits the shot of the day on 16 and takes the tournament right there. Those are big moments. Those are special players. Max Homer is in the elite class now, but it was Rahm who put that moment on the table when it meant something. And you know, that's impressive as we head into, like you said, the big tournaments. We've got the players where he should have won one already. Well, I can't remember the year, but remember he was in control and had a late implosion when he was much younger. Yep. I don't see him necessarily doing that again if he gets in position. So last year was pretty much a write-off for anyone who wasn't on the exact side of the draw. Don't forget that when you're looking at past history. And so he'll be very hard to beat in a couple of weeks there.
Yeah, Benny, very important for Rahm too. Not that Rahm needed to show us or himself anything, didn't have to prove anything, but you mentioned it there. Torrey Pines in contention, shoots 74 in the final round, got flustered, got frustrated, never really got it back. And last week or 2 weeks ago, I guess, in Phoenix, shot 68 in the final round, which doesn't sound that bad, except all the guys around him on the leaderboard, Scheffler, Nick Taylor, Justin Thomas, all shot 65 that day. And so he certainly could have gone lower. It was out there for him. Didn't play his best golf in the final round. Now goes out there in a final round. And yes, the mini final round slump of Jon Rahm is finally over. Okay, I kid. I say that in jest. All right, let's do what we do every single week here on the Links and Locks podcast. Playing 18 holes, making 18 bets for this week's Honda Classic. This one's going to be interesting, Benny, because we only got 3 of the top 20 players in the world, 8 of the top 50. Gonna have to dig deep. Where you're starting?
Oh, you'll be surprised to see I'm starting with an Australian, and one that we don't see that often. But Minwoo Lee is coming into town, and in this field and the way he's been going on the DP World Tour of late, nothing worse than 12th, I think, since he missed the cut late last year in the Italian Open, including a 3rd at the Australian Open. I just think that he's a player that could sneak up on a few people, and it's only plus 2,200 to win, but I saw obviously Minwoo grow up. I remember watching him in a few Australian Opens when he was still a teen. He's the brother of a very accomplished LPGA star as well in Minjee, who's won majors. And he's got a chip on his shoulder that he wants to prove his own name and show that he can do that as well. So just a sneaky little jab there as my first outright option for the Aussies in Minwoo Lee.
I don't know whether to say that you've dug deep and made a really good play there with Minwoo Lee and finding all those stats on him, or at 22-1, is that just sort of the harbinger of things to come this week? Because there are some numbers that are shorter than we ever would have thought for some of these players, just based on the field strength. So I do think that Lee is a nice play. And you're right. I mean, he's been on absolute fire on the DP World Tour recently. So if he can keep that going, he's a nice play. All right, second hole. I tried to dig deep. I always start this out with a long shot outright play. And I picked out my guy and I said, all right, that's a nice long shot play. What's he? 100-1, 125? What kind of number are we getting on him? Robby Shelton is 45-1 this week at Bet365. Good folks at Bet365. I'm not blaming them. He's about the same in most books. It's not like anyone's pricing him wrong. It's just, there's not a whole lot of competition. So Shelton I like for a few reasons. First of all, very sneaky so far this season. 6 top 25s in 11 starts on the PGA Tour since the fall. And then you look back at what he's done on the Korn Ferry Tour, and I always think that success on one level translates to success on another level. In 2019, he won twice on the Korn Ferry Tour, got his PGA Tour card. Eventually wound up back on the Korn Ferry Tour last year. He won twice again. And so this is a guy who knows how to win at a very high level and has done it on multiple occasions. I'll take my shot at 45-1. I would have liked double or triple that number, but it is what it is this week. It ain't going to get any better.
Yeah, look, he came up on my short list, partly because I think he was 11th when he first played there in 2020.
Yes.
He got to start there. So that sort of got me looking at him. And as you said, yeah, multiple top 25s, a couple of top 10s this season. So nice pick. As we've said from the start, the numbers are tough this week because, look, let's face it, this has been a long shot event over the years for the majority of times. And that because there's 7 million water hazards. Is that right, Jace? You mean near your town, but is it?
Yeah, I thought it was 8
about
million.
that. So it's pretty hard to. Jason Day once said to me in the early days when I was covering golf over a decade ago now. I said, "Oh, why don't you like this place or whatever?" And it was like, "Well, I can't recover from the water. Like he can hit a shot around a tree, through a gap, or whatever else, but you just can't recover from the water."
That's a fair point.
So, when there's a lot of water, certain guys are going to have trouble and certain aren't. So that's one of the big things I did look at is winners over the last 7, 8, 9 years there have had to have the strong strokes gained tee to green, right?
Yeah.
So based on that, I'm going to throw you my first top 5 play, which again, look at this guy potentially in the overall as well. There's a winner late in the fall, Adam Svensson. He is a guy that has been pretty decent strokes tee to green so far this year. I just got to get his actual number here. I know it was there somewhere because it came up, but he's half decent in that space. He was plus 3,000 to win, plus 650 for a top 5. He was T9 last year.
Yep.
At PGA National, and he led the field last year in strokes gained tee to green. I think only the winner might have been second. Straka might have been second on tee to green. But so that's enough for me to think that he's a top 5 and a potential outright play.
I like that a lot, Benny. In fact, I'm going to rearrange my card a little bit here to move my Svensson play up to the 4th hole because I've got him as well. I've got him in the player market bets at Bet365, where essentially you can bet guys. It's sort of the over-under for their final result on the leaderboard. They've got Adam Svensson this week at 35th or better, minus 120. I get it. They're juiced up odds. The minus 120 odds are for everybody's over or under, but I really like the Svensson play. Like you mentioned, 9th here last year, 9th last week at Riviera. There aren't a whole lot of guys. You and I were talking about this before we hit record on the pod. There are very few players who have both recent form and course history on this golf course. And so you start going through it and you're like, well, that's the intersection we look for. That's sort of the sweet spot of somebody's been playing really well lately and they're coming to a golf course where they've shown some success in the past. Okay, that's what we're looking for. That's what we're targeting. There's not a whole lot of those guys this week. Adam Svensson is one of them. Let's put him on the card.
Yeah, love it. Okay, well, I'll throw in my player market bet, as you said. This week I've found a guy that I think can be better than 53rd that Bet365 has his over-under at. And he's 110 to 1 in the overall, if you want to look at, the long shots, etc. But he's one of the top guys in the field, the top guys strokes gained tee to green that is in this field. He's 32nd on tour this season, but, 3rd, 4th or 5th in amongst the players that are actually playing this week. That's Erik Van Rooyen. 53rd or better. He's won on tour. He's clearly, got the goods. I think that's a number that gives you that's pretty safe in that 5 to 6 scenario.
Yeah, I like that. He's a guy that after watching him at the American Express earlier this year, I just saw a little something in him. He hadn't shown us much last year. He missed the cut in 10 of 21 worldwide starts a year ago. I just think that he's ready to have a big comeback, bounce back year. So I do like the Van Rooyen play. He's a world-class player when he's playing his best golf. All right, 6th hole. I'm going to stick with these player market bets, but I've got a fade instead of a play. And I'm fading for one reason and one reason only. It's not because Shane Lowry has been playing poor golf, although until last week at the Genesis, he was not playing great. He did show up last week. What was he, 13th, 14th on the leaderboard, something like that. That said, Shane Lowry was on our show, our radio show, Hitting the Green on SiriusXM PGA Tour Radio when we were live at the 17th hole at TBC Scottsdale a few weeks ago. And we started talking schedule with him. They said, yeah, I'm playing the Honda. He was second last year. Remember, he had a chance to win down the stretch. All of a sudden, a rainstorm comes out of nowhere. The wind starts howling, and he winds up falling just short. Really bad timing for Lowry, who wanted them to delay play at that point. Has nothing to do with any of that other than he said, yeah, I guess I'll play the Honda. I live 5 minutes away, so I'm going to be practicing that week anyway. So I might as well just go play. That to me does not sound like a guy who's ready to go out there and play the third week out of 5, where he's sandwiched by 2 designated events on either side. This sounds like a guy who's just kind of, well, I feel like I should, so I'll go out there and do it. I can see Shane Lowry. If he doesn't go shoot 65 in the first round, if it's closer to a 72, 73, I just don't know if the whole, let's say, give a heck meter is going to be on full going into Friday afternoon's second round. So I've got him 21st or worse in the player market bets, and I'm taking that.
Oh, man. That is a big call because you're right. He has been playing well. He was runner-up. He's 5 for 5 at PGA National.
Yeah.
I'm going to come back to him later. So there we go.
Okay.
I do love what you're saying, though, because that would be like buyer beware. Have a look at the guys that are, that are the bigger names in this. And this includes the guy I'm going to go to now for my next time. I'll give you a first round leader on the guy that is the clear favorite in the betting books. I'm going to go to Sungjae Im. Won the tournament before. I just don't love plus, what is it, 750, 850 or whatever to start a tournament.
Yeah.
Especially when, as we've just said, 2 big weeks coming straight after this week. So it's like, how much effort are they going to put in? Like, you'd like to think they're giving their best all the time, and they it's not like they don't not try, but you've got to think that they've got to take the foot off the gas at some point. Now, Sungjae's the only guy that has proven he doesn't necessarily need to. Mm-hmm. So that is why I've decided to try to catch that 2,500 in the first round rather than just get on the favorite from the start. Now, look, Jon Rahm was the favorite from the start the last 3 times, and he won them. So can't always try to, jag the better odds. Sometimes you've got to take them when they're there. But I think that Sungjae, I'm going to look at the 2,500. If he starts well, great. You might have a chance for that to cash. If he doesn't, you might get better than that 850. You might get 1,200. You might get 1,300 from a guy who's 3 or 4 back, and you'll have to decide what he's going to do on Friday. Is this guy going to come out and chase it, or is he going to take the foot off and just see what happens? But yeah, that's my play for first round leaders, Sungjae, and that's where I want him. Just until I see how much gas he's putting into this week.
Okay. 8th hole, I'm going to go to my Sungjae play here. And it takes an explanation, because I think that if you just hear the play, you're going to go, oh, come on, Sobel. I'm taking Sungjae for a top 10. And I know some people out there are going to go immediately, yeah, no kidding. He's the prohibitive favorite in a field of really weakened players, and, not a great field list as far as big names. A top 10, way to go out on a limb. Here's my point, though. If you can get Sungjae for a top 10, I think he's not a guy that has that, gosh, I don't want to say mail it in, but he's a guy that's going to step on the gas pedal no matter what. This is not, it's only the Honda, and I have Bay Hill and the players coming up very soon. So I'm just going to take it easy this week. That's just not in his makeup. He's a past champion here. Sungjae for a top 10, and I'm thinking half the bankroll this week on something like Sungjae for a top 10. Then you can spread it around with a few lottery tickets, trying to hit some outrights, trying to hit some other bigger numbers. But at plus 115, if you think about it this way, what do you like better? Some underdog to beat another player in a head-to-head matchup at plus 115, or Sungjae for a top 10 at that number? I will take Sungjae all day, and I will take him this week. And I actually really like that play. And again, this is not a, I'm just sort of not going out on a limb with the top 10. This is no, it's strategic in that I'm thinking somewhere on the 30, 40, 50% of your bankroll on this play, and then you can kind of let it roll with everything else.
All right. Well, I guess I'll go to Lowry now then, because that's the top 10 for almost the exact same reasons was where I was looking at Lowry.
Okay.
I was looking at Lowry as, okay, he wants to impress in front of the home crowd. He is coming off a reasonable week at the Genesis. He's 5 for 5 making the cut at PGA National, but you're 100% right. I can't say that I'm gung-ho for this, because I just don't know. You just don't know what that attitude's going to be come Thursday. Right now, maybe he takes a rest Tuesday, Wednesday, and that's where he gets his juice back. That's where he gets things flowing. And he comes out Thursday, knows the course so well, and plays great. And if it's that Lowry that turns up, I do think that he's a chance to win the whole thing, to be honest. I think there is a little bit of annoyance in what happened to him last time, that he was, unable to sort of get that win with the storm that came in. But, you've definitely made me think twice about it. So I'll just leave it at that.
I will say, look, and I've already said I'm fading Lowry this week. I think a lot of it comes down to how he plays in the first round. If it's,
Correct.
like I said, 65, 66, 67, he goes, all right, let me go out here and win this thing. I can use a win.
Yeah.
Why not? Yeah. At home, that would be great. Get to be held as a champion everywhere I go in the West Palm Beach area. But I think if he goes 73, 74, something like that in the first round, watch out, because I just don't know how much he's pressing his foot down on that gas pedal going into the second round and beyond. So, all right, that's our front nine. We're going to get to the back nine in just a second. But first, as a reminder, the Links and Locks podcast, proudly presented by Bet365, the world's favorite sportsbook brand. Sign up with promo code ACTION to get Bet365's exclusive sign-up offer in New Jersey and Colorado. Bet $1 on any game, get $200 for free. And as we move to the back nine, I will start out with my first round leader play. You mentioned you've got Sungjae there. I'm going to go with SH Kim, who's a guy that I've been on for first round leader plays a few times already this year. And the guy's put up some really nice numbers in the first round. I'm looking at it right now. He ranks 31st in round one scoring average. He's made 13 starts this season, by the way. SH Kim is another guy who just, if he's in the field, if he qualified, he's playing. He's going there and he's playing. 13 starts. He's broken 70 on Thursdays and on 8 different occasions so far. He goes low. I hate when I take some guy for a first round leader play and then a week or two later, he winds up being the first round leader. And I'm like, man, I can't believe I jumped off. I'm sticking with SH Kim for a little bit here.
All right. I love it. I love that you sticking solid. And I do think that he is a player that's going to become much more known as the weeks go on. So definitely got some talent. Okay, let's see. I'm going to go to the 11th with someone to look into matchups. I haven't got a lot of matchups on offer yet, but I think that there might end up being some value of players around wherever he ends up. And that is my little mate, Byung-hun Ahn, or Ben Ahn, as he goes. Making his return to the tour after a year, a hiatus, having lost his card, and already starting to show some of the stuff that had him on it as the International President's Cup team back in 2019. He's 4 straight made the cuts, I think it was, and PGA National, he's had 2 top 5s in the past. So with that, I think that Ben Ahn might be someone that you can find in comparable matchups that you might get a bit of juice.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people on Ben Ahn already this week. Look, for me, it all comes down to the putter with him. If he's putting okay, he's got a shot. So I like that. With the 12th hole, I'm going to go to a guy who always putts well. He might be one of the game's premier putters that we know of right now, but he was also ball striking last week. And Denny McCarthy happened to gain strokes with his irons on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Saturday was really good, part of a 7 under 64 at Riviera. Coming in on a high note. I hate the question, Ben, of who's the best player right now without whether it's major or PGA Tour win or whatever else it might be. Because look, if we're going Lifetime Achievement Award, it might be a Tommy Fleetwood for the best player without a win right now. If we're going most talented, it could be a Sahith Theegala, who's obviously really good and going to win at some point really soon. But if we're just looking at a guy who's been around for a while, who keeps getting better, but just hasn't quite broken through yet, Denny McCarthy is somewhere on the list, depending on what type of variables you look at. I'm playing Denny McCarthy for a top 5 this week. I think he gets into serious contention at plus 600.
Yeah, I love that. Look, Denny was one of the guys that I had here as shortlist for outrights, etc. You can only pick so many, right? But he definitely popped on my shortlist for multiple things. Didn't make the final cut, but not for any great reason. So I think it's a good play that you've stuck Denny in there. All right, let me go to a long shot play for the 13th hole. And when I say long shot, like you earlier, I was looking in the hundreds, looking for 150 to 1, 120 to 1, maybe 90, 95. But in fact, it's all the way down to 5,500 for Joseph Bramlett. 24th on tour, strokes gained tee to green, one of the better in the field this week, as I said from earlier. And yeah, just trending in the right direction for me, as I said, and just has the game and the factor that can potentially fit PGA National. So again, I'm looking for out of the box. I'm trying to find some value. He popped up on a few of my stat metrics. So keep an eye on Joseph Bramlett as a across the board option.
Okay. I can get down with that a little bit. All right. With the 14th hole, I'm going with the guy that I target this player, or at least have over the last year and a half, because he's only in his second season on the PGA Tour, but I like targeting him on short, tight, southeastern tracks, Bermuda greens. Everything seems to fit the profile for Greyson Sigg, the UGA product this week, who I've had my eye on for a while. I'm going to go with the top 20 this week. Again, just a nice prop play on a guy that, maybe he's not going to go out there. Maybe he's not quite ready to win a PGA Tour event yet, but I like this guy. I think he's, sort of got the same temperament as a lot of the other UGA players, which is essentially like, man, I'm just going to go out there and ball strike the heck out of it and see what happens. Plus 375 for a top 20 on Sigg this week, Benny.
All right. Yeah, he was up there for a little bit recently too, wasn't he? I saw his name. Where was I dealing with Greyson Sigg's name recently? It was not that long ago. So he's obviously got some form on the board. And for my top 20 play, I'm going to go for a guy. You're not getting a great number here, but you know how earlier you were talking about, trying to find sort of a lock to maybe put a bit of your bankroll on. I'm going to almost call this one a lock for a top 20. Plus 175. Canadian Taylor Pendrith is where I'm going to go here. Look, last year's Honda, I went back through it. 3 rounds in the red. No one had 4. But of those that had 3, he dropped back to T25 after one pretty bad round. I think it was third round, 74. But if anything suits where he can, just bring out his game, he can use the long game when there's his irons. He can iron the place to death if he needs to. And now he's at President's Cupper. I think that he could be the bolter this week that actually you should look at him across the board, honestly. But in terms of I'm looking for that lock, I think the top 20 plus 175 is the lock.
So I've got a lot of things to say about Taylor Pendrith, but we're only at the 16th hole, and I'm going to wait until the 18th hole.
There you go.
On a regular basis. Hint, hint, you know where I'm going with that. All right, before I get to Pendrith, 16th hole, I've got a couple of top 40 bets for you. One is Tyler Duncan, plus 200. Look, there's no form. There's no real history at this event, but he's a guy that I've targeted on shorter golf courses and more especially in the wind. He's a very good wind player. And so I'm looking at Tyler Duncan for if the wind starts blowing. It's not supposed to be terrible this week, but quite honestly, Ben, I looked up the weather in Palm Beach Gardens, and it says, usually a 12 to 20 mile an hour breeze for the most part throughout the 4 tournament rounds. I've been there. I've covered this event 5, 6, 7, 8 times, whatever it's been. And quite frankly, in Palm Beach Gardens and the surrounding area, the wind could be blowing 12. For whatever reason, at PGA National, will be blowing 28 at the exact same time. The wind just blows on this golf course, even if it's not a windy day elsewhere. And so I like him there. And then another guy who's played a lot of good golf in Florida, a lot of good mini tour golf in Florida, a 35-year-old rookie who putted lights out at Torrey Pines a few weeks ago, Eric Barnes. It's a very interesting story. I got to get this right, Benny, because I wrote this up in my preview this week. During COVID, just to earn a little extra money as he was playing his craft as a professional golfer, and there were not too many golf tournaments to be played, he was working at a Publix as a grocery replenishment specialist.
Yep.
Ben, do you know what a grocery replenishment specialist is?
He was stacking the shelves, and every now and then he'd help pack the bags.
I love the title, though. It's such a good title.
Yes.
Sounds important.
Oh, mate. Good,
so, yeah,
good
Eric
story.
Barnes at plus 240 for a top 40.
Oh, I love it. Good stuff. All right, so we're getting into my final big winner play, right? 17th hole. Who am I thinking is going to be the man? Now, look, full disclosure. The last 2 weeks during competition, it's been my job during competition to, after certain rounds, to pick guys to draw, or in other words, to get on mid tournament, and who to fade mid tournament. And both tournaments the last 2 weeks, he has cropped up, and I've faded him mid tournament during those weeks. But now I'm starting to be a believer. Now I think he's really starting to do something, and I think this guy, who's won multiple times on the tour, might be ready to come out of nowhere. And it's out of nowhere because he'd been injured for a long time, had some shoulder issues, and has just recently come back. But Johnny Vegas, fourth on tour, strokes gained tee to green now, behind only Rory, Rahm, Scheffler, Morikawa are all around him on that list. And Johnny Vegas is right there. He's look, I would have liked to see better than I think it's 3,000 or 3,500, I think you can get for him to win. But just because I've been keeping an eye on him and thinking, no, he's not back. No, he's not back. And he's been, obviously he didn't win, so theoretically I was right to say to fade him, but he's had good results. He was up there in Phoenix. He was up there again in LA. And now he gets to go to a place where I think if he gets his ball striking on point like it has been, look out. We could all of a sudden be saying, oh, there's Johnny Vegas. Where's he been? Right there as a champion at PGA National.
Look, I did not write him up in my preview this week, but I do not hate it. He's got a really nice record at PGA National, as you mentioned, and he's one of these guys. We've talked about him before on the pod, Benny, because I think if you essentially gave everyone a silhouette and just saw them swinging off the range and chipping and putting, this is a guy that he can do it all. The swing's fantastic. He's got really soft hands around the greens. He's a pretty good putter. I've thought for a long time that Johnny Vegas has the talents to be a top 25 type player in the world. Would not surprise me. Again, he's a 3-time PGA Tour winner. I don't want to sell him short. I don't want to make it sound like Johnny Vegas has never done anything on tour, because he's been a very solid player for a very long time. But I believe 38 years old, older than you probably think. I could see sort of a late career resurgence for a guy like Vegas, who still obviously has plenty of tools. So I like that a lot. Last hole, 18th, mentioned it before. Taylor Pendrith at 33-1 is my guy this week. He has established himself over the last year or so as one of the better drivers of the golf ball on the PGA Tour, and you'll have to do that this week in order to survive out there. I mean, basically, don't hit the ball in the water at all. Don't be in too many hazards. Don't 3-putt, and you've got a good chance of finding yourself on the leaderboard. Pendrith is a guy that I've been high on for a while. He's shown a little bit of form now. He's played well here a couple times in the past. I just like everything about Pendrith this week, and this might be more of a using my long-term bullishness for a short-term play, but I don't think that's a bad idea ever, because this is one of those weeks where I think you look at players that you say, you know what? Yeah, I like this player, I like that player, but I'm not going to pick them at one of these big designated events. We're starting to run out of events, quite frankly, where you would take a guy who's not a upper echelon player to win a golf tournament. At some point you go, look, I don't know that I'd play Taylor Pendrith next week at Bay Hill with all of the game's best players. I don't know if I'll play him at a Players Championship with all of the game's best players there. There's only so many events you can take a guy like that. This is one of them. If you like a guy, play it. I really like Taylor Pendrith. I will have him on the card at 33-1.
Yeah, as I said, I think that he potentially could be that lock for me in that top 20 scenario. And look, the caveat is, as you said, he's going to have to be accurate off the tee, right? Like he's I think about 40th strokes gained off the tee, does well, as long as he's not being haphazard and trying to spray it up into dangerous spots where the water hazards are. I think that if he plays measured and smart, this is a tournament he should be targeting as one he can win. Like he should literally be. And look, I know he'd be thinking about Bay Hill and players and all these as well. But these mid-tier guys, they have to put their focus on these weeks. They have to make sure that these ones that are there and they have a crack and smash those. And then take that confidence from playing well in those events forward into the designated events and hope to be the Nick Taylor or whatever it was, or even Keith Mitchell, man, who I know we're very gung-ho on. I didn't think he would stay up there as long as he did last week. But there's always going to be a guy like that that's going with the big guns at the designated events. but they can't forget that they need to target these other ones and try to get some wins on the board as well. And I think Pendrith should be definitely keyed in to try to do that this week.
Yep, totally agree with that. I do like maybe fading some of those players who have had success and are maybe looking ahead to some events later on, as opposed to some of the guys who are looking at this as a massive chance to change their career fortunes.
Yeah, let me throw this at you. And we didn't throw this up because we generally are very positive and we know these guys are great. But I mean, is this a week if you're trying to be a little bit cheeky to parlay your missed cut options with your Sungjaes, your Lowrys, your Horshalls, like maybe when they're at their plus odds, the missed cuts, you might get lucky.
Two of those names. I talked all about Lowry before, and again, for me, it's about him getting off to a good start. And then Billy Horschel, who you mentioned before we started recording, did not have his best stuff last week. It looks like those swing changes have still yet to fully take hold. And so for me, if I'm going to make that type of play, it's probably a Lowry Horschel play. But again, those guys are so good that they might be able to go out there for 2 days and just shoot, even pars and be right there and not miss a cut.
Yeah. It's just one of those things. It's just one of those weeks where, as I said, look, we always say, bet responsibly and enjoy yourself, and it just don't be silly in these weeks. Just have a little fun, put a few little things out there, and get ready for the big ones that are coming, because we have a huge 6 weeks on the way. We've got Bay Hill into the Players. And we'll have match play, and then we'll have the Masters, and with a few things sprinkled around it. There's other spots that you can have, let's say, more educated points to place your cash.
Yeah, can't wait for it. Bay Hill next week. You coming out to Orlando next week, Benny?
It's still up in the air, but I might leave that to you and Will Gray, who works with us too at GolfBet too. So I'll leave that for him. It's local, and you'll see
I guess Will's going to get the tee time at the Walk instead of you this year. Then, so
I know that is the one thing I would miss if I'm not there. Let me tell you guys, Jason and his club, it's a fun time. If you ever get a chance to be amongst it, just bring your wallet. He got me last time.
For anyone out there, if you've listened this far in the pod, then we like you already. DM me on Twitter. You're in Orlando. We'll get you out to the Walk, and we'll get you playing a little Amigos game as we do out there with all the boys. So thanks to everybody out there for listening to this episode of the Links and Locks Best Bets podcast. Remember, you can find our pod anywhere you find your favorite podcast. Download, subscribe, rate, and listen every single week. For Ben Everill, I'm Jason Sobel. Good luck with all your bets for this week's Honda Classic. Here's hoping you guys hit the green.